What if one announcement Ripple hasn't made yet is the single fuse that lights a financial firework the size of a national economy? So picture waking up, checking your phone, and realizing the window to grab XRP at coffee money prices slammed shut overnight while you were drooling on your pillow. So here's the story that kept me pacing around my apartment like a caffeinated tiger. A few nights ago, of course, I'm scrolling through the usual crypto chatter and up pops Edoardo Farina, the Alpha Lions guy whose timelines are basically catnip for conspiracy-hungry XRP holders. Now, he dropped this volcanic tweet saying the final deadline to buy XRP cheap is coming at the moment that Ripple lifts the curtains on their escrow secrets. So $2 XRP, he says, will feel like spotting a Ferrari in the clearance aisle at Walmart. Now, I have heard my share of spicy price predictions, but something about the timing hit different. Ripple's chasing a US bank charter, sniffing around a Fed master account, and quietly rubbing shoulders with folks who wear more navy suits than hoodies. Now, my brain went full detective mode, grabbed a notebook, threw in a podcast about banking charters, and decided to trace every breadcrumb to see if this hidden truth could actually nuke the current price ceiling. First, let's lay out the riddle. Ripple holds a mountain of about 37 billion XRP locked into an escrow. Imagine Fort Knox, but instead of gold bars, you've got digital IOUs that could unlock on schedule every single month. Now, the code on the XRP ledger is supposed to keep it transparent and prevent Ripple from dumping tokens like confetti at a parade. It's pretty neat, right? Except Farina thinks the public ledger shows only the surface, while the real agreements signed in oak-paneled rooms may be stamped with a government seal. Stay tucked away behind non-disclosure clauses thicker than, well, grandma's lasagna. Now, he's tossing around names like the US Treasury and the IMF, suggesting Ripple's escrow might already be spoken for, earmarked as collateral for liquidity backstop in some future financial plumbing overhaul. Now, that hypothesis, it fired up a memory. Now, back in 2017, when everyone and their barista spun up an ERC20 token, I interviewed a banker who whispered that big institutions move slower than glaciers, but think in decades, not trading days. So if Ripple did cut a side deal with governments, retail traders like you and me might be blissfully unaware until a press release drops and the whole market goes turbo. So picture BlackRock saying, surprise, we're bundling escrowed XRP into a sovereign liquidity framework. And people would FOMO so hard that their keyboards might file for workers' comp. Now, here's the relatable dilemma then. Most of us are not insiders. We're the folks refreshing price charts at red lights and debating whether to buy more during supermarket checkouts because, well, the dip looks juicy. Now, the fear is two things, right? Missing the rocket and catching a falling knife. Now, Farina's tweet kind of pokes exactly at that nerve, right? If you are only living once, or the YOLOing a stack now is the only way to avoid kind of playing musical chairs later, right? But with that thought, we have to hold up. Is there any data to support this? Or are we all just kind of doom scrolling ourselves into a stress migraine? So I did what any rational degenerate would do. And I mean dedicated researcher, of course, dedicated research would do. Now, I brewed a double espresso. I pulled up the XRP Ledger Explorer and counted the monthly escrow releases. Now, they really are robotic. 1 billion XRP comes out, Ripple usually relocks the bulk of it, let's say 80%, and sells a slice. And we just move on with life. But here's where it gets a bit spicy, right? If Ripple suddenly altered that kind of candidates, maybe the funnel, at least 2 funnel tokens into a central bank liquidity pool, supply on exchanges could tighten like your jeans after a holiday season, pushing prices north pretty fast. Now, historically, every time a token supply shock hit, remember Litecoin's halving cycles or Bitcoin's own, halvesies, spectators kind of pre-traded the news, and the aftermath wasn't always as predictable. And that brings me to one more breadcrumb: Ripple's push for a national bank charter. So let's think of a charter like an all-access backstage pass to America's financial concert. With it, Ripple could jump lines that most fintechs die waiting in, right? Connecting directly to FedWire and maybe even secure that coveted master account. The translation here is quite simple. They'd morph from scrappy Silicon Valley startup vibes into a legit pillar inside the monetary castle. If escrowed XRP becomes collateral in that castle, well, retail supply might vanish like discount PS10s on launch day. But let's hit pause and address the elephant juggling flaming chainsaws in the room: speculation. Now, Farina's theory hangs on behind closed doors agreements that no one can verify. Now, the blockchain is transparent, sure, but NDAs are not. That tension between on-chain clarity and off-chain opacity is kind of where the magic is, or the kind of mirage lives. And that is why your friendly neighborhood content nerd, hi, that's me, has to kind of keep one foot in optimism and the other in caution. Okay, here's a quick hydration break, sip of water, and here's the part that YouTube lawyers love me for. And this one might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. Your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video today is for entertainment and educational purposes only. There you go, mum, I said it. So let's think about investor psychology for a second. Markets, they aren't ruled by spreadsheets, they're ruled by FOMO and regret. Right? If Ripple announces tomorrow that a slice of their escrow is pledged to, let's say, the IMF digital liquidity basket, the narrative flips from XRP is just another altcoin to XRP is the institutional rails for cross-border liquidity. Right? Even fence kind of sitters who kind of swore that they would never touch anything other than Bitcoin might suddenly feel like the kid who forgot to RSVP to the biggest graduation party. Demand surges, supply shrinks, and price, well, we've seen fireworks before, right? But does that mean rush in blind? No, it doesn't. Now, case in point, I've got a buddy, let's call him Dave, because we've all got a friend called Dave, who kind of aped into every rumor coin last cycle. Now, he once bought a token because the white paper mentioned AI 9 times. Now, he's now the kind of proud owner of several digital pets that haven't moved up since. The lesson? Buy the rumor can be a double-edged samurai sword. Right? If Ripple's kind of reveal disappoints anyone, let's say the escrow is still escrow and nothing changes, then short-term hype could fade faster than my New Year's gym resolution. So, how do I personally navigate this maze? Well, step 1 is information diet. Right? I stalk court filings like their season finale spoilers and watch Ripple's regulatory steps closer than a hawk eyeing an unguarded sandwich. Step 2. Risk management, right? I treat allocations like slices of pizza, take enough to satisfy, but stop before the heartburn. And step 3. Community intel, and that's where our free educational Discord server, link down below, becomes gold. Real talk, I lurk in there daily, swapping charts, corrections, jokes, and occasionally bad memes. Now, if Ripple drops a midnight regulatory bombshell, someone in the chat will ping at everyone before my caffeine even kicks in. Now, speaking of resources, if you decide that this potential escrow plot is worth riding, then I use Kraken Pro for deep liquidity orders and tight spreads. For full disclosure, the Kraken Pro link in the description is an affiliate link, which means that if you sign up and trade, the channel earns a small kickback at no extra cost to yourself. Kind of like tossing a tip in the jar so that I can keep these rabbit hole investigations coming. Alright, back to the saga then. Let's visualize the what if Ripple schedules a live stream titled, Escrow Vision 2.0, and Brett Garlinghouse appears, flanked by a representative from the Treasury and maybe an IMF economist with perfectly parted hair. They unveil a multi-trillion-dollar liquidity program where escrowed XRP stands as the programmable reserve asset. Now suddenly, market makers on every exchange scramble to pre-price risk, and those limit orders are set at $2.05. They evaporate because sellers dried up. Price gasps and gaps up the way that vintage sneakers moon on RAL release day. Now, the Twitter melts, of course, into a frenzy of green candles and, confession memes. Now, could the opposite happen? Sure. Maybe Ripple clarifies that escrow remains unchanged, emphasizing transparency, hoping to cool rumors and remain and keep the SEC at least at bay. Now, in that timeline, Farina's final deadline might just be another tweet lost in the crypto noise. Now, the price, could dip as speculators kind of exit, cursing their itchy trigger fingers. And that's the kind of duality of crypto theater, right? Shakespearean kind of drama meets roller coaster charts. And popcorn is, mandatory. But let me zoom out here to why all of this matters beyond just bag watching, right? If Ripple truly ties XRP's future to institutional frameworks, we're itching towards mainstream adoption that people claimed was impossible during the 2018 bear frost. Now think of it as crypto puberty, awkward now, but eventually it shaves, gets a job, and maybe even a mortgage, right? We already see banks piloting blockchain settlement, central banks poking around with CBDCs, and fintechs bridging stablecoins. An escrow twist could be the moment that XRP graduates from an altcoin town to backbone infrastructure. That's not just price, it's a legitimacy. I had a light bulb moment about this while kind of paying for sushi last weekend. Now the waiter brought one of those little kind of handheld card readers, and in my hand I imagined future versions settling through tokenized liquidity in seconds with near zero fees. If XRP forms a chunk of that backbone, then holding some today might feel like grabbing domain names in the 90s, assuming that you pick the good ones and not the pet.pizzas. Still, caution flag, right? Ripple's legal saga with the SEC, though mellowed, isn't fully closed. Any sudden regulatory thunderbolt could spook the herd. Policies could require Ripple to adjust or disclose escrow arrangements under new reporting rules, right? Complicating the story. And let's not forget macro storms either. If global markets wobble, risk on assets, yes, crypto can drop in kind of tandem. And that's why position sizing and time horizons matter more than shiny narratives. So here's the bottom line that I keep taped to my monitor. Right? Narratives ignite momentum, but fundamentals sustain it. Fundamentals, or Ripple's fundamentals, are network throughput, partnerships, and yes, how they treat that escrow crayon. Now, if tomorrow's reveal amplifies utility rather than just stir hype, then Farina's goodbye cheap XRP prophecy could become self-fulfilling. If not, well, price may retrace faster than a toddler changing moods. So let me wrap up this ride in plain English. Right, I'm excited, but I'm not marrying my ledger. Now, I'll keep nibbling modestly during dips, stacking a war chest for possible fireworks, and chatting with the crew in Discord for rapid fire updates. My strategy kind of boringly simple then: diversify, monitor catalysts, and never bet the rent money. And if the hidden escrow truth, catapults XRP into the history books, epic. If not, I'll survive to meme another day. And hey, if you do jump in, then use Kraken Pro via the affiliate link below. Not only nets you a solid trading interface, but also buys me the occasional latte, and so that I can kind of keep turning caffeine into, well, crypto stories. Everybody wins, except maybe my sleep schedule. And so, to sum it all up, Edoardo Farina might be sounding the last call bell at this digital bar. But whether you chug or pass is entirely up to your risk appetite. Just remember, right, secrets eventually surface, markets eventually price them in, and opportunities favor the prepared mind, not the reckless hand. Now, I'll be right here watching the escrow countdown like it's New Year's Eve in Times Square. Notebook ready, memes at the helm, and Discord notifications on loud. Thanks for kind of taking this speculative road trip with me. No GPS, just vibes and good due diligence. And if this breakdown fed your brain, tap that subscribe button so that the algorithm knows that you want more first-person crypto investigations. And of course, I'll catch you in the next deep dive.